Alright, so we're back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII, and today we are discussing Crisis Core, or the upcoming remaster. It's kind of hard to say because it's definitely a remaster, but there's the possibility that it's not just that, which is kind of the point of today's video. And I say that because it's already been a week since the 25th anniversary for Final Fantasy VII, and since like the first day that this got revealed, people were already thinking that and saying that. There's going to be new things added to this version of Crisis Core that make it tie into the remake story. The main thing that people are kind of thinking of right now is possibly a new ending. Here's the thing, at least in my opinion, there is definitely something to this because there's a reason they're giving it this like new sub name, right? Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. There's got to be a purpose to that, and I don't know what it is outside of tying it into like the remake stuff where there's all these sub names and shit. All the FF7 stuff coming out right now has sub names, Ever Crisis for a Soldier, all that other stuff. And the thing is, when it comes to at least the FF7 story, when you think of Reunion, that's FF7 shit. That has nothing to do with Crisis Core. So giving it the Reunion subname is honestly kind of weird. I'm not saying that there's not mention of Reunion theory within Crisis Core, because there very well could be. It's not like I remember everything about that game or every journal entry that you read. That's not the basics of like the story, right? Reunion happens within FF7, whenever that's what draws Cloud to Sephiroth, that's what makes Cloud give Sephiroth the black materia, etc., etc. Again, that's not stuff that really takes place within Crisis Core, unless they add some new shit. So the Reunion thing, the Reunion subname, has to be for a different reason than what you kind of expect with the FF7 stuff. Some of the other reasons why people think that there's going to be some new shit added to Crisis Core Reunion is the descriptions that we have for the game, both the English and Japanese, are pretty much alluding to that. Because on the English side of things, it has the basic description of the game, but at the end it says, going way beyond just a simple HD remaster. The Japanese description, which we'll read over really quickly, says, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII is a heartfelt story that was released in 2007 and since has become a highly anticipated part of the series. The story itself is connected with Final Fantasy VII, and now, through time, is revived with utmost quality. By incorporating the latest HD graphics, all characters in the game will get a completely new 3D model. Amidst a story full of turmoil, the game will also be fully voiced and contain newly arranged songs which have been vividly reimagined. The gameplay will be optimized to be as seamless as possible and incorporate various battle systems. Zack Fair, a young man who longed to be someone who could save the world, who was trusted by legendary heroes, and who was loved by a girl who held the fate of the planet in her hands. His hopes and dreams he shares with Cloud, all of it is told in this epic tale where it evolved to become something greater than just a mere HD remaster. And actually, the description just reminded me of something that also adds on to the possibility of there being new shit in this game, is that they completely re-recorded all of the dialogue. So now it's like the modern Zack Fair voice actor, it's not Rick Gomez anymore. And if you're going to go through the effort of completely re-recording every line of dialogue in this fucking game, there's got to be a purpose to it. Now, that doesn't 100% have to be the case. It could have been a money thing, like if they were to just completely remaster the game but keep the old voice lines, maybe they would have had to have given those old voice actors the royalties, and it's like, well, if we're going to pay somebody for voice acting, we might as well just re-record the shit. That could have been it. And also put it in line with remake stuff, right? If you have a Zack voice actor throughout the entire game of Crisis Core Union that sounds nothing like the Zack from the remake shit, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would kind of confuse people who don't know the full story there. For one, I'm completely excited about that. I know there's still people who just get so upset that we're not having the original voice actors within like these works for FF7, and I get it, man. But I love the new voice acting with Remake, and a lot of people hate on the new Zack, but I feel like, personally, we haven't heard enough of the newer Zack voice actor to even gauge how good they are. And this is the perfect opportunity for that. If him recording all the lines for Zack from Crisis Core, like we're going to get a bunch of different types of emotions in different situations to really get an idea of how good he is as Zack Fair. The other thing that has me excited about the new voiceovers when it comes to Crisis Core Reunion is we're going to get more of Cody Christian as Cloud. And I've said this since like 2019, and it's a hill I will die on. I get if people disagree with me. I think he's a better Cloud than Steve Burton. Not even just because Steve Burton played a lot of like depressed, sad emo Cloud. I just don't think that his voice acting was that good for the character. It's very monotone, very one note. And I feel like Cody Christian has way more range as a voice actor, especially for Cloud. I haven't heard him in anything else. I don't even know if he's done anything else. And I don't even know what else Steve Burton has done for voice acting. But I think he was a good Cloud because that's the Cloud we had for so long. But when you compare it to Cody Christian, I think he's just way better. Now, moving beyond that topic to some other shit that adds on to the possibility of there being new shit when it comes to Crisis Core Reunion is, for one, there's like a Japanese website dedicated to this game with like character profiles and shit, which again is pretty odd. I mean, there are new characters in this. Like, if you don't know shit about the FF7 compilation, there's going to be brand new characters in Crisis Core Reunion that you just don't know. So it makes sense to a certain degree for that. But at the same time, it's also a game that's, how old at this point? It came out in like 2007. It's 15 years old and shit. Now, the age isn't that important. I mean, we had character profiles for characters from Remake, despite how old FF7 was at the time when they started talking about it a lot in 2019. But the point is how much effort they're going through for something that you would think, at least at surface level, until you really dig into it, seems like it would just be an HD remaster, an HD port of a game from 15 years ago that's only on PSP. Why are they making Japanese websites dedicated to character profiles? It's pretty strange. On top of that, they've also talked about, at least on the Japanese side of things again, we ain't getting a whole lot over here on the English side of shit, that the Remake Twitter account, the Japanese one, is going to be the hub for like information and updates for in regards to Crisis Core Reunion. Again, why do we need that if it's just an HD remaster? You shouldn't really need updates for something that is just a remaster, right? That's something you get with like brand new games. Like you have the Remake Twitter account for updates in regards to Remake, and the Remake project and updates for shit that's coming out under the FF7 Remake umbrella. If this was just a normal HD port, you only need like another trailer in a couple months and then a final trailer before release, and that's all you'd have to do. If they're going to be providing updates for this game, what are they going to be showing us? Would they actually show us some of the new shit, if there is new shit in this game, throughout trailers and like through social media and shit, or would they keep that shit hidden until the game comes out? I don't know. Now, on the topic of there being new shit in this game, the very common idea that I've heard is a new ending. I don't think anybody's really specified what they think that's going to be, but some sort of new ending that ties it into the remake story. So, more than likely, Zack's last stand. That's kind of the last shit you see in Crisis Core anyways, but Zack's surviving, right? Since he seems to have survived at the end of Remake. But would it just be that, like a full version of that, of him surviving and fighting those dudes and living? Or they actually added new shit, like maybe, post Zack Last Stand going towards Midgar type shit. Like the shit that we got from the Rebirth trailer where we see Zack carrying Cloud towards Midgar, we're outside the walls of Midgar, but also the ending with like episode intermission where we got Zack already in Midgar at the Sector 5 church, where we get some of the in-between of that shit. If they're going to add stuff like that connects it to the remake story where we get beyond Zack's Last Stand, beyond where Zack would have died and he's now survived with the remake story, I'd love that, dude. That'd be a perfect way. That way you're getting Crisis Core, but then they're giving you new content as well. A question I asked recently that I think is pretty interesting is whether or not I think that we're going to see the Terrier Stamp logo within Crisis Core Reunion. And given that it's, from the ground up remaster, like they completely overhauled the game, maybe even the combat system a little bit, they even re-recorded all the dialogue with, new voice actors, they could certainly add new shit into the world, new assets into the world. They could simply put stamp logos around the world, whether that's like graffiti or posters or something like that, similar to what we have in Remake, right? You see, stamp kind of everywhere, bags of chips, all that other stuff. But which stamp logo that is within Crisis Core Reunion would be very telling of what's going on with the remake story as a whole. Because throughout our entire Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion playthrough, if we're seeing the Terrier Stamp logo occasionally, then that's confirmation of a different timeline. That means it's always been the Terrier Stamp logo in this version of Crisis Core the entire time. That's why we're seeing it at the end of Remake, because it is in fact an alternate timeline. But if, however, throughout Crisis Core Reunion, if we're seeing the Beagle logo the entire time, then that's a confirmation of a timeline alteration, that we changed the history of this timeline. That's why there's a different logo, because when we defeated Whispers, it changed the past, it changed the history of this timeline, and this is now a world where that's always been the logo. I personally think that is a fantastic idea. I'd love to have the stamp logos around the world, and just depending on what they are, again, would give us some answers. They could also add some other new things. I don't know what those could be that would tie it into the remake stuff. But on the idea of an alternate or new ending, I'm 50-50 on it, because I do want them to tie Crisis Core Reunion into the remake story. I'd love to get some more answers for what's happening with Zack. Of course I want that. But on the flip side of everything, if you change the ending of Crisis Core, if you change it to where we don't see Zack die, then that makes the remake ending not make sense for newer players. Like, let's just assume you're a newer player, you hopped into the FF7 shit with just Remake, and you played episode intermission potentially as well. If your next step into the FF7 shit is just Crisis Core Reunion, and you don't see Zack die, unless you've done the research, you don't understand the ending. You don't understand why it's a big deal that Zack survived, right? Because if you play Crisis Core Reunion and Zack survives at the end, then that's just what you think is the story. You don't realize that it's a big goddamn deal that he survived that last stand. Which is why I think the best thing that they could do is have Crisis Core Reunion, outside of some maybe new assets and shit in the world, like the Beagle stuff, is have the actual ending, like where Zack dies. But maybe have an actual alternate ending, or a secret ending, a true ending, whatever you want to call it, where we see it tie into the remake story. I mentioned this recently, and I still don't know how I feel on it, is I don't know who this game is for. Is it for newer players? Is that why it's going to just be Crisis Core Remaster, and that's all it is? There might not even be new shit at all. We're just all getting hyped up for no reason. Or is it for returning players or people that know the whole FF7 story? That's why it could have a different new ending that ties it into Remake, and it's kind of your fault if you don't know what's actually supposed to happen here at the end of Crisis Core. Or is it for both? And it's going to be a mixture of that. It's going to have the actual original ending, but maybe an alternate ending as well, tied into Remake. I just don't know what they're doing here. Maybe that's the point of why the goddamn FF7 Remake Japanese Twitter account will be a hub for information and updates on this game. Maybe they're going to tell us that at some point. I don't know. I've seen people talk about the possibility of this Crisis Core port, assuming it has the same ending, spoiling the big twist when it comes to the FF7 story. That, Zack dies and Cloud takes on his persona, takes on the Buster Sword, all the other shit. Thing is, that's already out there though. Like people could already obtain that information by simple Google search for one. But also, the original Final Fantasy VII spoils everything for you as well, and that game is on every single platform. So I don't think that it's fair to say that Crisis Core is going to like spoil the big twist. Like nobody's making you play the Crisis Core reunion, whether or not it has a new or the old ending, whatever it might be, because the information's already out there anyways. It's obtainable to anybody. And I'm almost positive that anybody that played Remake without knowing the FF7 story, seen this brand new character at the end, this character called Zack. You have the subtitles on by default usually. You see the character of Zack, you're like, who the hell is this guy? They probably did a Google search and spoiled it for themselves anyways. And this further adds on to what I've said for a while now that I think is going to happen when it comes to the Remake project, is that we're going to learn the truth of Cloud's history with Zack, and the Nibelheim incident, the Buster Sword, all that other shit a lot sooner, because it's not really secret. It's not this hidden twist anymore. Like, they're going to have to do something else with the Remake story, which, you know, the twist could be that Zack isn't in fact alive, that Zack is dead and in the live stream. That could be their twist for the Remake story, because the big twist of, well, Cloud has Zack's memories. Like, it's still going to be a good moment, obviously. We're still going to feel those feelings. But for the majority of people that are going to be playing the Remake project and shit like that, it's not this twist anymore. It's not this big deal. It's shit that everybody knows. And even if you don't play the FF7 story, you've not even played the original FF7 or Crisis Core, it's something that you might already know, because it's kind of a popular thing out there. It's not on par necessarily with Aerith's death, but it's up there, man. A lot of people know that. But again, if this Crisis Core Remaster has the same ending as the original Crisis Core, that's a good thing for newer players anyways. People that don't know the FF7 story, because that gives them a newer way to look at the ending of Remake. Now it makes a lot of sense why the ending of Remake was a big fucking deal, because this dude's supposed to be dead. But my dudes, I think that's going to be pretty much the video. We've been making some longer videos for a while now, and I've said in the past I'm not the biggest fan of it. Some people don't care. Some people like me making longer videos. I like my videos being a little more digestible, but for some reason lately, man, we've been making like 10+ minute videos for a while. So we're just going to kind of wrap it up here. I just wanted to talk about Crisis Core Reunion a little bit, talk about the possibility of it having new shit, which is exciting. Like, I love that. I love when, you know, remasters, ports, whatever, add additional shit in it. I want the game that I know, that I've played before, but I wouldn't mind some brand new shit. I think back to, like, the 3DS version of Dragon Quest VIII. It's pretty much the same game, but there's a lot of quality of life changes, and they added some new shit to it, which is fantastic. But my dudes, that's going to be the video. Of course, pass off to you guys your thoughts on the Crisis Core Remaster coming up. Crisis Core Reunion is coming out later this winter, which could be anywhere from like December to March of next year. So there's a little bit of a window there, a couple months. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's going to be simply just a visual remaster and that's it, with the recorded, you know, dialogue, obviously? Or do you think there's going to be new stuff in it? And what do you think the new stuff's going to be? Is it going to be new shit throughout the game? Or is it simply just going to be a brand new ending that ties it into Remake? My dudes, that's going to be the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't anyone today. More Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, or is it Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion? However you say the goddamn title. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, #YT. And my Discord. Links to social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
I used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.